Hello, my name's Trevor Keeble and I'm the Executive Dean of Creative and Cultural Industries at the University of Portsmouth. Thank you very much for joining this session on industry and academia, creative partnerships. We're going to tell you a little bit about the work we've been doing, but before I do that, I'll introduce our panel. With me are two of my colleagues, Dr. Adrian Hull, Head of the School of Creative Technologies here at University of Portsmouth, and Pippa Bostock, our Project and Development Manager, who's been leading the development of our Centre for Creative and Immersive XR. We also have Mark Tomlinson, one of our industry partners from Novatech, who will be telling us a little bit about the partnership and taking part in our panel discussion, and then hopefully also answering some Q&As. Which we'll be doing as part of this discussion. So there'll be points at which I hope people will be able to post questions and thoughts into the chat, and then hopefully we can perhaps respond to those and get a real sense of the ideas and priorities for you as an audience. One of the core things I think we're interested in is really thinking about what the successes are in university and industry partnerships, and actually also where the challenges are. So I mentioned we're a faculty of creative and cultural industries, and one of the core propositions that we have in our faculty is that we believe the creative industries can bring value to any industry. Our Centre for Creative and Immersive XR CCXR, we call it, and this is a project that we've been working on for the past 18 months or so, and in partnership with the Solent Local Enterprise Partnership. So this has been a large funding. It's a £5.2 million capital investment, and we have a short film to play you, just giving you an overview and letting you know what that is. So if we could play video 1, that would be great.
Centre for Creative and Immersive XR, or CCXR as we like to call it, will be opening at the University of Portsmouth in October 2021, bringing 12 immersive areas and amazing facilities to the university to work with industry, to work with our students, but also to help to lower that barrier to entry, because this kit is so expensive. It's so hard for businesses and artists to actually get a chance to experiment, to play with it, and to learn how it can help them. So it's really about enabling all different sectors to come in and get involved in the centre.
Games, film, television and broadcast they're all kind of going in that area. They're already established within virtual production and all of these clever production techniques. But the most exciting part for me is where that can be applied in other businesses and what it can do in other areas that it hasn't been explored yet. That's always the most exciting part for me, is new areas to explore, new ideas to try, and new challenges to try and overcome, to try and create content for people.
I don't think there's one singularly exciting thing about CCXR. There are hundreds of exciting things about the facilities, about the people, and about the opportunities for what we can do with the facility and the setup over the next decade.
CCXR is a £5.2 million project, so that 3.6 million of that is basically kit. So that will bring us our 12 immersive areas. So we'll have a brand new motion capture studio, virtual production incorporating a smart stage. We'll also have photogrammetry, we'll have a wide range of simulation facilities, VR lab, digital communications, everything that comes together to build that digital immersive pipeline.
In CCXR we'll have a full LED virtual production stage, which is a smart stage from White Light, which will allow us to do final in-camera shots for presentation, for visual effects, for gaming, and all these uses that we haven't explored yet. That's the most exciting part of it, is that we're working in conjunction with the companies that are supplying all the equipment, and we will be discovering new techniques and new ways forward in virtual production.
CCXR has been a marathon, a roller coaster, getting to this point. So for the last 2.5 years, myself and Professor Trevor Keeble, Alex Council and the rest of the team have been putting together the business case and the rationale for CCXR. We are lucky enough to have been supported by Solent Local Enterprise Partnership, Solent LEP, and also by HM Government. So we've had a large grant from them well as investment from the university to make the centre a reality. So we're very excited to be bringing together all this technology under one roof. It is a UK first, a lot of the technology we're bringing in, particularly combining it in the way that we are to have the whole immersive pipeline from capturing that data all the way through to the different ways you can use it.
One of the really exciting things about CCXR is there are no comparable facilities in the UK, especially within a university context. What's really exciting is the facilities are world class, and as I've said, it's really unusual to have these facilities. There are no other ones in the UK, but we also have incredible technical staff and really enthusiastic academics, so it really is something that's unique.
CCXR will transform our research by enabling us to have access to a whole wider range of facilities. It will bring benefits to our students, it will bring benefits to the wide range of companies we want to work with, and it will also just help to bring everything together. So a lot of places may have volumetric capture, they may have motion capture, but we'll be one of the very first to bring them all together in one place, which means you can work on projects in different ways. You can use smart stage technology, virtual production technology, but bring in your volumetric captures. You can use motion capture in the same environment. It's that combination of the technologies that's one of our unique points, if you like. It's the way we bring it together in unexpected and challenging ways to work on industry challenges.
A few years ago we were approached by the partners, which have since become Super Union, to motion capture Sir Simon Rattle to celebrate his return to the London Symphony Orchestra. We were originally going to capture Sir Simon in front of the whole orchestra as he conducted during practice, but that proved technically too difficult and disruptive for the orchestra. So we had a window of approximately half an hour during his lunch hour. So we set the motion capture system up in conjunction with Vicon in the choir practice room in the Barbican. And Sir Simon came in on his lunch break and we put him in a suit, gave him a baton with some markers on and motion captured him conducting it to a virtual orchestra. Then the movements were turned into amazing animation by an artist called Tobias Gremler, and that was used as the ident for the relaunch of the London Symphony with Sir Simon Rattle, and has been used by another 2 companies since to create new seasonal idents for the LSO. I think the most exciting motion capture project we ever did was an in-house project called Steiner and the Wolf, because the scale of production was ridiculously ambitious for a university, and we set up what would only be described as a full production motion capture suit, which we ran for 5 solid weeks, day in, day out, 8 hours a day. It's the most ambitious thing I've ever tried to achieve in the university, and it was a huge challenge that we learned a lot from, and we got a lot of industry advice from. So again, that harps back to these real world experiences. That doesn't just work for the students, that works for technical and academic staff as well.
In a sense, we don't know where it's going to lead yet. I think what we do know is it's going to enable us at the university to work with an extraordinary number of organisations and individuals. I think it's going to have an impact on thousands and thousands of students learning, and then hopefully that will feed into the region and to the economy of the UK.
Hopefully that film provided you with a sense of what.
I'll just pick up because I think we're having some, Trevor's having a few Wi-Fi issues at the minute, so I'll just pick up and say hopefully the video gave you some kind of a really good sense of the CCXR Centre overall. Trevor, I think you're back with us, aren't you now? We'll run this.
Maybe. Unfortunately, for some reason, my connection is going down. So there's a chance that Adrian and Pippa are going to have to step in and ask their own questions to themselves. Thank you, Adrian. Apologies about that. One of the reasons why the Local Enterprise Partnership have co-funded us is because they recognise the importance of XR to the growth of a local economy, and they recognise the opportunity for the sector in the country as a whole. One of the key propositions, and I mentioned this at the very outset, is that we believe that we can bring value to a wide range of sectors. We've worked with a whole number of people, medical, defence, and performance and creative industries. We're obviously still incredibly interested in working with the creative industries. Obviously, Mark's here to talk about our work with the defence industry. One of the key things though, and you won't be surprised about this, is our real focus is around students, and we're interested in developing the future talent pipeline for the XR industry. We have a real-time integrated group project as a well-established final year undergraduate project that we work in partnership with industry. And we've got a short film to tell you a little bit about that. So if you could play video 2.
So Rickperr is a current third year unit on our courses. It stands for Real-Time Integrated Group Project Unit. Now it's really exciting to us because it's one where we get real industry companies to set challenges to our third years. So to give you an example, the Royal Navy recently set us a challenge of, there was a brand new boat, a Pack 24 boat, that actually it was getting damaged when people were trying to park it and steer it because it was so different, the controls to other boats they had in the area currently. So what they did, our students in the third year used a 4 degrees of freedom motion platform, so it goes up, down, side to side and can spin slowly, to create a VR simulation for this boat. The team did an amazing job with the Pack 24 simulator. The Royal Navy actually took the project to a local national conference and then to an international conference. They also worked with Novatech, who's the company who partnered with us on the project, and they actually won a £500,000 contract create 15 more of these simulators that are now all around the country. So what started as a student project had real impact for the company. They won a contract to follow on from it, and had real impact for the Navy.
The unit itself has existed for about 13 years in various forms, and over that time, the total run of the unit, there's been about 750 or more students who've successfully completed it and graduated. The unit itself is, as the name would probably suggest, aiming to get students to build a real-time interactive project as a team, and in order to best prepare them for their future career in whatever industry they join, be it games for entertainment, simulation, defence or medtech or other, they work with external clients wherever possible.
Working in the real world is what our students are going to do when they graduate. So to give them that experience in a safe environment as they're studying, I think is massively important to their confidence, to their skill building. They get to do real world scenarios and work with real world clients, but we've got their back. It's their safety net.
So the projects that allow those students to develop both those kind of industry relevant technical skills, you know, the real world problems that are driving the skills that they're learning, but also all of those wider softer skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to kind of negotiate and work with these people and forge those connections, just the ability to just go up to people and introduce yourself and make a really good first impression to the right people. I never felt I had those at 21, and I think it is so important, particularly in this area, to have that opportunity, as well as obviously all of the benefits that come with the degree itself.
So last year we were very lucky to work with Rare Studios on a year-long live client project where they acted as the client. On the Rare project as well, we were also very lucky to have audio design done by one of our second year music and sound technology students. So it really was a cross-disciplinary project, but they also were mentored by Sean Davis from Rare. So they had some really useful insights into the way that studios work, and some expert guidance in the way that they manage their project. It was a hugely successful project, and in fact was then nominated and won the Grants in Games 2020 Industry Collaboration Award.
Rickperr has been very, very successful over the years, mostly because of the opportunities it affords students to get as close as we can manage in a safe environment of a university, experience of the world of work and of working with an actual client on a live brief. So it's not a simulation, it's as close as we can manage it without it actually being a commercial project. And especially for games development, or development with games technology, being able to work in a multidisciplinary team is actually a really key skill. It's probably, realistically, the main unique selling point of the programs at University of Portsmouth. Mostly because actually courses which purely focus on being a programmer or being an artist or being a designer, they miss out on that group work and collaborative work. So in Rickperr, you work with programmers, you work with designers, you work with artists, you work with sound students, you work with animators. You know, you work with the range of professionals within your peer group that you would in industry. So you learn an awful lot from that, not least how to work with them.
It's so important to work with industry because it brings a sense of real world to an academic institution. So the students at university are learning how to think, but they're also learning how to think in ways that hopefully will be useful when they get into the real world.
So for the students, they leave with incredible real experience of working with industry. That experience they get is invaluable to them. There's a recent report by Story Futures actually said that graduates who are leaving with these interdisciplinary XR skills are so rare and mythical, they describe them as unicorns. We've been saying as a team, well really, we're building a unicorn farm. So I'm very lucky. I get to work with unicorns and technical wizards. So it really is magical.
What else can I say about Rickperr? It's amazing, you should do it.
I hope that gives a sense of some of the work that our students have been doing in partnership with industry. But I think perhaps before we go on to discuss that a little more, I'd like to invite Mark to tell us a little bit more about Novatech and what Novatech does, and then perhaps lead into a conversation around why Novatech has worked in partnership with the university and our students.
Sure. So Novatech are a specialist hardware supplier of IT equipment. We've been in the industry for around 30 years now. Our core verticals are primarily education and defence. I think in terms of the overall kind of university partnership, I think the main thing came about through the Royal Navy Reserves, which you probably would have seen from the video, but they were having some real issues, specifically around training and their PAC-24 PAC-24 ribs. And I'm sure you can imagine in that type of setup where they're a part-time organisation and they have to try and combine getting everybody in to be able to train with the UK weather conditions, which I think most people can probably see today are difficult and can be challenging. That was something that they really wanted to overcome. So that was the start really of our partnership, and specifically on this project, but kind of overall as well. And that it was really trying to overcome that challenge, which is where everything really started from.
Right, that's great. I mean, one of the things I know has happened is the project itself has actually kind of evolved and moved on, and provided doors to other opportunities. And I was wondering what role that has for the company. Has that shifted your kind of focus?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, overall, it's been a huge success for us. And you know, it's a massive testament to the work we've done. We're very grateful for the work we've done together, and obviously thank you for your time and support. But I think initially we started this with, if I'm honest, we're an engineering company as well as an IT company, and we just thought it was a really cool project. You know, that's that we do this. Our MD at the moment is working on a project at the moment, trying to get a Tesla motor into an old Nova. That's what we're born from. We have that kind of in our makeup. And I think the project initially was because it was just something really interesting and exciting to work on. But what it's led to for us is a massive success, which was overall we won a £500,000 contract to supply the Royal Navy directly. And that's a big opportunity of, obviously, just in a monetary sense, of course. Commercially, you know, with the numbers involved, of course, it's a big success, but actually it's really raised our profile within the MOD as well, which genuinely, as corny as it might sound, you can't really put a price on that. It's invaluable. So
I think that's a really important point. Just for note for your MD, we've got a great racing team in the university.
He'll be very excited to hear.
Yeah. They're great. Pip knows them well. Adrian, I was wondering if you could perhaps talk to what the role of industry-facing real-life projects are within the curriculum.
Yeah, it's so important. So I'm the head of the School of Creative Technologies, and in that school we've got undergraduates and postgraduates studying a whole range of areas, ranging from music technology, animation, digital media, media technologies. We've got games technologies, obviously, and VR and XR, of course. But for all of those subjects, universities, we need to enable the students to think, and we need to help them prepare themselves for the world of work, but not just for the work the day they leave university. The idea of the university education is that we're sort of helping them set themselves up for the rest of their lives, really. So one way to really engage and inspire and challenge students is by working with industry. I think just picking up on what Mark's kind of just said, I think there's a phrase that we've been using recently about playful directed experimentation. And that is kind of being really serious with our work with the students, but also being quite playful, seeing what happens if you put a couple of different things together. Now, often we have our core curriculums that we've developed over years and years and years, and are kind of refined and constantly evolving, but it's so good for the students to have the opportunity to experience what's going on in the real world. I know you asked about students, Trevor, but obviously it's vitally important for the academics, for the staff as well, and the university community to kind of keep in touch, or in fact more than keep in touch with industry really, but to really get under the hood of what industry needs and wants. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. But essentially, it's about bringing some real life excitement to the curriculum, and then hopefully it's benefit for the the partners as well as the students.
Thank you. Thanks, Adrian. I mean, picking up on that, Pippa, I know one of the things that you've spent the past few months doing is going through procurement frameworks, spending money. And the thing I'd be really interested for you to perhaps reflect upon, if you could, is what technologies are coming in that we really haven't put in front of students before? What are the things that we're actually going to be setting challenges around and helping companies and different firms and companies from different sectors to really get an understanding of XR3?
It's a very exciting time. Thank you, Trevor. We have literally got boxes of technology arriving on a daily basis at the moment, and it's so exciting to get it in the hands of our students and being used in anger, so to speak. So we've got everything from Tesla suits and haptic suits through to VR guns for doing location-based experiences. We've already had a chance to trial some of our things, such as our 3D scanners, our career form scanner, where we're actually mapping heads and all sorts of other things, using that scanner to create instant 3D models. We've also done LiDAR scanners with some local partners of some buildings. So there's all different types of technology coming in. We're really excited about putting students to work with the smart stage. You've already seen a presentation on that earlier on today with White Light, one of our partners. For us, it's all about building the partnerships with industry, because by working together, we can make sure that our students are working on real world challenges that matter to our partner. CCXR isn't built and designed to work in isolation, it's designed to work in partnership with industry, and that's at the real heart of it for us. We want to be solving real world challenges, working with our partners. So smart stage technology, we're bringing volumetrics to the UK in a way that hasn't been done before, in that this is aimed at R&D. It's about lowering that barrier to entry and enabling artists, companies, practitioners to come in and see for themselves just what the transformative power of XR technology is and how it will help them. So really, we're a demonstrator. It's an open door. Come and see and come and experience for yourself. That's really what we're saying to industry.
That's great, thank you. I mean, this is perhaps a question for the audience. I'm always interested in what industry really wants from graduates, and maybe Mark, you might be able to talk about your experience of that. But I'm aware that we're talking about new skill sets, and we're talking about trying to future-proof and really develop the industry. So I'd be really interested if people have thoughts or observations around the current skill set that our graduates have, and actually what they need. Sorry, Adrian, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was going to say, just to echo that, it'd be really interesting to find out what people really feel they need from the students, because I think, and from universities, I think we're quite clear, especially in creative technologies in my school, we're really clear on why we want students to work outside of the, the classroom, the lecture theatre, the curriculum. And particularly derives from the Shadbolt review a few years ago, which was into sort of computer science related graduates and the skills that they need. And there were sort of several recommendations that came out from that. One was around kind of extending, promoting work experience. One's about kind of making sure that students can do the basic things, but they can also grow and continue to learn for the rest of their lives. And then it's also about helping us to sort of improve graduates' softer skills and workplace readiness, so that they're actually more kind of amenable to actually starting work straight away. But one of the other recommendations from the Shadbolt review was that universities continue to develop their understanding of what tech startups, but also SMEs really need. So it all goes hand in hand for us, I think, as in terms of what we provide to the students. We really want to try and get it right, I think.
We certainly would do. Mark, can you give a sense of what sort of graduates, if you're employing graduates, but what sort of skill sets you're actually looking for? I mean, but perhaps before you do, I mean, I know that the students that worked on the project with you immediately went into work prior to graduation. They clearly were, you know, they were leaving with a skill set that somebody wanted. So I'm interested in what sort of skills you feel you need in your business.
Well, I think that the primary thing that you both touched on there actually is a readiness to come into industry. And unfortunately, I think it's something which you can't really pick up on in a classroom environment, and it's because it's very difficult to replicate, right? And actually coming into a new business or coming into a new organization isn't an easy thing. You know, people with vast experience go to a new business, and that's difficult, but they might have been in a work environment for years, and to do that from purely being in academia to then just step into a corporate setting isn't an easy thing. So I think that readiness is massively important to us from a business perspective for everybody involved, because it can just ease that transition. But in terms of skill sets, I think if you're talking about purely from a technical perspective, for example, again, that's something which we're always going to look for. We're always looking for innovation, and I think most businesses will. It's so important, and also from what you have set up and the setup you have, that research element is massive for us, as we've probably would touch on. This type of project that we spoke about with the RIB Sims, we haven't got the time, the resource, or the capacity to do that as a business. You know, we're a good sized business, but we're an SME. We don't have a big R&D department. And having that ability and having people who come from an environment where they were doing a lot of R&D and they can bring those skill sets into industry is, incredibly valuable for us.
That's very interesting to hear. I mean, we're obviously very committed to the idea of a fairly early stage R&D, and I think the live student projects are a really great example of that. But that bigger question around how businesses want to undertake R&D, and actually the role of R&D in their commercial development, I think you said it yourself, people want innovation. And so we're very, very interested in how people actually build that into their model, their business and their working model.
Yeah, and it's not easy. It's not, I mean, as I said, if you look at the probably organizations that obviously have the ability and resource to have a full R&D department within their business, you are talking about the major defence primes, for example, the Airbus, the BAE, the Lockheed. They have the ability, the resource and the money, and the ability to research something over a number of years before it actually starts to deliver a return. We just, we're a smaller business. We don't have that headroom.
That's a really interesting point, because there's a cost to R&D. And actually, for smaller businesses, that partnership opportunity working with the university, I think, really is about proof of concept testing. It's about really working out whether this is something you can take further and put money into and invest in. One of the things I'm mindful of is actually this thinking around the skill set for our graduates. Is actually the creative and the technical. We're hugely lucky to be part of a number of interesting projects with partners, some of which you'll have heard about in the conference already. We're part of the RSC-led Audience of the Future Demonstrator project, which has been a wonderful opportunity for us, and indeed will be a wonderful opportunity for testing out some of our kit as that project moves forward. But one of the things I think characterises that is a coming together of the creative and the technical. And we've had conversations about the technical toolbox and the theatre making toolbox, and bringing those things together in such a way as they don't compromise one another. I'm interested in what you think that future, that simplistic binary, and in higher education, we were always being challenged by that simplistic binary and STEM and the arts. And I think it's one of our jobs is to kind of efface that and challenge it. And I think what we're seeing in XR is absolutely that actually the future is going to be for the creative technicals, not that simplistic understanding of them being distinct. I'm perhaps wondering how this may be for you, Adrian. How do we support our students to be creative and technical whilst recognizing they need technical depth or they need creative depth?
Yeah, it's a massive challenge, isn't it? And I think, you know, I've got the privilege of being head of school. I get to sort of welcome all the students every year and inform them that they are unicorns, because by the time they graduate, they will, you know, they will leave with hopefully a solid sort of creative basis in terms of their thinking, but also those technical skills. Now, I think what's interesting is to think about, if we think about it from a creative point of view, we can see quite easily that technology has always informed creativity. So as a musician, the history of music has been continually influenced by which instruments are available, the spaces and places in which you can perform. And then as we move into the future, you know, through CCXR and other ways, it will be informed by the resources and the facilities that we have for spatial audio, just in our, you know, our headphones, for example, now. So technology has always informed each creative practice, I think, and it's kind of in a way debunking that myth that the STEM subjects are totally different to creative subjects. That said, though, we do need to ensure that students have a solid grounding in both areas, and that's once again where in the final year of their undergraduate studies, the large majority of students get to work on a real project with real clients from the real world, and there's nothing like galvanizing students to produce even better work than they normally can, than having a deadline with an external professional who's asking why they haven't done it yet. Yeah.
Pip, I was wondering perhaps whether you could talk to the process of managing those relationships, because I know this is something you've obviously done a lot of, and one of the real secrets to successful creative academic industry partnership, I think, is being really clear about expectation. I was wondering if you perhaps talk to some of the other partners and when things have gone well, but also perhaps when things haven't gone so well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the basis for all, as Trevor said, the basis for all of these kind of collaborations is that clear and open communication and understanding the expectations, and also understanding the needs of both partners, you know, understanding what the students need, i.e. normally to be able to show it in their show reel when they graduate so they can help themselves to get a job, but understanding that the partners and what they're looking for it as well. I mean, we've done a wide range, and all the best challenges, all the best projects, whether that's Innovate funding or all the way through to student projects, normally start with a cup of coffee, normally start with a challenge and a company saying to us, we're trying to do this, we don't know what to do, or what do you think about this, can you help us? That's the conversations I love. We've done one recently with Worthing Museum. They had artifacts in their collection that were viewed as so disgusting. They didn't want to put them on display because they kept getting complaints when they put them on the display. They were things like rings made out of tarantulas and a cape made out of monkey skin, and they just didn't know quite what to do with them. So we were lucky enough to receive some Innovate UK funding. That was a Design Foundations Award, to work with them to basically put together a whole exhibition, Designing Disgust, why do we feel the need to judge? And that basically challenged the viewers and the audience preconceptions, if you like, about disgust. So you walk in, you see a spotlit dress that just looks like a beautiful silk dress. Slowly, a silkworm wiggles out of the dress through light projection and drops to the bottom of the dress. Over the course of the afternoon, that dress fills with 13,000 silkworms. And then the voiceover says, well, how do you feel about the beautiful dress now? And you go through a number of different iterations of this. We have jewelry that's made out of hair that blows, the monkey cape, you feel a heartbeat of a monkey on your shoulder. I normally tell that story with a plastic bottle in one hand, and then we put this down and say, well,
you know, in 50 years time, we may feel that that's far more disgusting than anything else that you've seen here today. And so it was about taking that real world challenge, and something that they were really trying to wrestle what to do with, and taking it all the way through to a project and a solution for them. Sometimes, like with Novatech, that can be a proof of concept that then goes on to be far much more. We've done so many different ones with the Navy in the past. We've done lots of BAE systems, working at heights, kinetic simulators, lots of degrees of freedom simulators. We've got motion platforms involved. Sometimes these can be animations, they can be cartoons, they can be different ways of visualizing data. There really is as many different projects as there are sort of, it's just endless. But that's the exciting part, and that's why we love what we do.
That's great. The partnership project with Worthing was really interesting, because we had one of our colleagues kind of leapt to the front in that and really did some beautiful work. And I think the thing that we mustn't forget is this is as much about our staff as it is about our students in many ways. One of the challenges in a creative environment is we employ people because they do amazing things, and then universities have a way of conspiring to stop them from doing that. Adrian, could you talk a bit about that, about the importance of those partnerships for supporting the staff?
Yeah, it's just really important as a manager of lots of staff in the school, like you just indicated. Sometimes staff have spent many years becoming world experts in whatever they do. Sometimes it's creative, sometimes it's very technical, and then we ask them to share that knowledge with the students, and that's what they do. And to be honest, everyone who works at a university is about helping people to have more of an education. But I think enabling that creativity for staff is really very exciting, in terms of that's what sets them on fire again. That's what gets people going, and it kind of enables them to have that spark. Now that feeds into teaching, but what we really hope is that feeds into the work with businesses. Now I know, Mark, you've experienced some of our stuff, so maybe we'll ask you to talk to that in a second. But I think it's really vital to keep universities as vibrant places that we work with industry, but also, very small businesses, very large businesses. And again, it goes back to that thing about playful, directed experimentation. It's about pushing things together, and we're never sure exactly what's going to happen, especially when we've got people who are experts at something. We throw them in a room with other people, and we throw potentially some constraints from a business partner that needs to achieve something, and you often find incredible outcomes come out of that. I hope that's kind of your experience as well, Mark.
Well, I can talk about obviously what feedback I get from my team. And okay, you imagine in this environment, I'm clearly outnumbered, but I can say under absolutely zero duress that reports and feedback sincerely from my team have been absolutely fantastic about everyone throughout the university in terms of staff. I know Ted had a massive involvement overall in the project and was very, very fondly thought of. And I can speak obviously of personal experience too. I mean, it was only, I think it might have been a few weeks back, I called Pippa, and it turns out, sorry Pippa, share this with you, but you're actually off. You're off on annual leave. You weren't around. You still took my call. You were actually out at the time. There was no reason for you to be as polite and as courteous and as friendly and as helpful as you were. But you absolutely, you know what, it didn't matter. And you were, you really got stuck back into the problem that we had. You really tried to help out. And I think that was something that I think I've just been overall impressed with, the kind of the level of commitment to this. It's and you do see it in lots of different places, and not just industry, but people do work a 9 to 5, and understandably so. And people work that, and they have a job and they do it, and they go home and that's it. They don't do anything else. But I don't get that feeling at all from you as a staff. I feel like you embody it, you embrace it. And I think if somebody called at 8:15 on a Sunday evening and said, I've got a problem, I 100% feel that you would all just go, okay, let's solve it now. And that's huge as well from an industry perspective, and a partnership relationship perspective. That means a lot. It means that big project keep going. So
That's great to hear, Mark. I can assure you, if I phone at 8:15 on a Sunday night, I don't get that response. But I'm pleased that we're treating a external partner as well. I mean, I am mindful of the fact that you are a little bit outnumbered here, and we're obviously all from the University of Portsmouth. I think one of the things I would say is we're aware that these kind of partnerships happen in different ways in different subjects across all universities. So whether people in the audience are interested in getting in contact with us or with other partners, I think that's actually other university partners. I think that's a really important thing. In my experience, universities absolutely welcome that level of engagement and investment from industry. One of the key things, and Pippa mentioned this, one of the key things that we're trying to do with CCXR is to actually have a demonstrator function to really show what technology can do. So this is a question for the audience, really, is to know what sort of activities or events might work out for you. You know, how would that best fit you? Inviting people in for the day, for a week, for a project. How can we best support people in just getting a sense of what these new technologies are and what the opportunities from those technologies are? Pippa, did you want to say anything about some of the things that we've been thinking about doing?
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at a whole different ways in which people can engage with us and engage with the technologies in the centre. So we'll be looking at running a whole broad range of workshops and programs that people can come and book into. And if you just want to do, for example, let's call it Immersive 101, where you can come and spend a day in the centre. You can spend maybe an hour in 6 or 7 different labs and understand a little bit about each of those technologies and how it might work for your business. Equally, we'll be working with organisations such as the KTN and Digital Catapult and the Satellite Catapult to do focused industry days for the different sectors. So we will have a day on defence, for example, with all our military partners in. We'll be doing a day on maritime where we're looking at all the different ways in which this technology can be used in those settings. And obviously there's our work with the entertainment sector. So we'll be doing focused sector-led activity days, but we're also doing those longer masterclasses, if you like, for people who are already working in motion capture, which is one of our key strengths. We'll be doing week-long intensive masterclasses in that, and we're hoping to partner on those with the Royal Shakespeare Company. And that course is well in development, so that will be coming out as one of our initial ones once we open next year.
Great, thanks, Pippa. We've had some questions come in. There's a great one here that's just asking us about our ethical processes and thinking around the ethics of partnering with private companies like BAE or Lockheed Martin. I mean, that I know is an important issue for us. Can Adrian, perhaps, can you talk to how we address that, or how do we talk to students about that? You know.
Well, it's really interesting because, I mean, from the students' point of view, some of them will, you know, we're not forcing people to take part in any projects, and even amongst the staff, you have staff who have preferences for different types of things, different types of ways of working. I think that the trick is that we need to be able to enable all of that and support all of it. With regard to the overall raison d'etre or ethical purpose of the university in this role, I think it is about bringing people together rather than being the kind of moral, you know, the moral decision makers on what sort of things should work and shouldn't work. But again, it maybe trickles back to education, that I think our role at the university is to provoke people to think, especially in the Faculty of Creative and Cultive Industries. We need to encourage our students and enable our staff to express their opinions, to express them clearly, and to fight for what they believe in. Now, it may be that it's doing certain things, and it may be that it isn't. But again, that's one of the fundamental roles, I think, of a university.
I think that's a really interesting point. One of the other, and it kind of leads on to one of the other questions, which is actually about, you know, how we introduced our students to industry partners, and do we ever struggle to manage expectations, but also how do we make sure it's a fair working environment, particularly around issues around diversity. You know, students have different preferences. How do we address that? I know that there is some discussion around the fit.
Would you like me to?
You can certainly talk about that, Pip, because I know you've had some experience of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do put a lot of thought into which students are working on which project, and all issues of diversity and inclusion are addressed as part of that process. But primarily also the students do choose. I mean, it's worth saying that most of our military projects, our private company projects, are about saving lives and keeping people safe. So we primarily do things such as, you know, submarine escape trainers, teaching people how to get out of craft safely, or doing working at heights, etc. Those kind of scenarios are the things we tend to work on. But in terms of selection for projects, that's very much open to the students. They basically put in an application for which ones they would potentially like to work on, and then they are selected for that project based on their abilities, the needs of the company. And in terms of managing those companies' expectations, that's very much an ongoing conversation. Most of the companies, as Mark will probably say, you know, Ted and I had regular conversations, catch-ups with Novatech. We had a regular communication as to how it was going and making sure that they were getting what they needed. And it's just that communication process, and it's building that relationship. Some of these companies we've been doing these projects with for 4 or 5 years. Some are new, such as Rare Games. You heard in the video that we won the award for grads in games this year for a project with them. And that's incredible, because that was all done during lockdown. They didn't even have access to all of the full facilities. They didn't have as much access to us as staff as they would normally have done. And they really just did an incredible job. So, you know, our students are amazing, and they always even surprise us at just how wonderfully they do on these projects.
Yeah, I think one of the strengths of the programme is the fact that we've actually been able to build and create diversity in our partnerships in order to reflect what the ambitions are for the students. Obviously, if you're a game student, the opportunity to work with Rare is a huge opportunity. There's also, I think, something around the skill set within the team. I know we have different students that are bringing different things to that particular project. Mark, can I just ask, whether, in terms of the Novatech project, are you aware of what the skill sets were of those students, or did you kind of see them as a team as a whole? Did you know who to talk to for what bit of the project?
Not me personally, but I know we had a project manager who was running that from our side, who was. But we knew overall from the skill sets required for that project specifically. So one thing that we do, and our primary, I suppose, primary part of our business is hardware. Now the hardware it obviously sits in the background, very much what it does. The focus of the hardware is to sit in the background and not cause any problems. Right? That's what it needs to do. But it's not overly sexy, but that's the focus. And then obviously we have the motion platforms. But the thing that we were really lacking was actually the ability to develop, and this goes back to the research side, the ability to develop the synthetic environment for which we needed to train in. So we could provide the hardware, and the hardware started off with a 2DOF, as in degrees of freedom, and 3DOF it eventually turned into, because that was what was required. But what we needed to be able to create was a synthetic environment, and that had to be written. You had to create that synthetic environment to create a realistic training environment, because if you don't have it, then obviously training is not relevant, right? If the environment doesn't feel real, and it's not real or not good enough to be trained within, the project is just a really nice simulator that moves about a bit. You know? So that was the expertise that we really needed, and that was what we had in terms of, that's what our project manager needed. And that was obviously what you did such a great job in supporting us with, was creating writing that software, creating that environment.
That's great, thanks Mark. We've had a couple of other questions, one of which I can answer. Question around the workshops and activities we're going to be putting on. Are they just going to be for UK, or are they going to be international? We want people from everywhere. And the activities that we're going to be putting on, you know, we really do want to bring as many people into our facilities and into the activities, and that's wherever they can come from. We're lucky, we have global partners, and that's a real core strength, I think, of some of the work that we do. So yes, we will welcome you from wherever you're coming. And obviously we're going to be working on the programme for that. There's an important question coming actually, which I think is really quite key to this, which is actually around managing IP issues. Thinking about how in these collaborations do we manage that? Collaborations with staff, but then also students. I was wondering, Pip, I know you've had some conversations and some dealings around this. Could you perhaps talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, again, this very much comes down to discussion and actually working out what's most appropriate for the project. I mean, if it's a tradition, say in the Rare Games, for example, there were elements of that the IP very much stayed with Rare, but there were also elements of the IP, such as the character and the animation, that stayed with the students themselves because they created those. But there isn't a standard. it's very much designed for each project. So it very much can flex depending what it needs to be. So IP issues for each individual project are considered on a case-by-case basis.
I think that's a really important point to make. I think universities can tie themselves up worrying about IP and perhaps misunderstand what the IP needs are of partners. And in truth, we just need to be, responsive on a case-by-case basis. And actually, the kind of thing that we're interested in is early development, early stage R&D. We're not looking to do spin-outs. We're not looking to do, make this a revenue stream in its own right out of the innovation. We need to make it sustainable. But I think that issue of IP can be a real challenge for universities as well as businesses. Adrian.
I think it's really interesting because we were talking about this yesterday with our senior sort of legal people at Portsmouth, at the University of Portsmouth. And I think the key point is that universities as charities are not about generating wealth through IP. So the value comes from the opportunities for students and staff to interact with external, private, or other organisations, and then the potential for generating research income and innovation income on the back of the IP, but it's not in the IP itself. So I think it's one of those issues that maybe businesses don't need to be. We're not trying to steal it all, are we? No, it's not what it's about in any way whatsoever.
And I think I can say from our side, as I kind of alluded to earlier, that we approach this with very much this is a really good question that we'd be quite interested in finding out the answer to. And actually, as I said earlier, the monetary side of things, of course, is a great benefit, and but that was not our actual initial approach. Our initial approach was we had ultimately a problem within the industry or within an organisation, and a question that no one could answer, and we didn't have the time, resource, and ability to answer it, and we needed some help. And if we could get it, fantastic. And thankfully we did, and did a great job in doing it. But it wasn't about us trying to find something that then we could then take out and make lots and lots of money from. That wasn't the primary goal at the time. That was just a really helpful and fantastic byproduct, but it wasn't the reason for us to be involved initially.
That's a really interesting thing to hear, because obviously in the project you were involved with, we actually had two partners. There was yourself, but then there was also the Royal Navy. So actually the project became conduit almost between those two partnerships with the university. And I think that was interesting, because I think you're right, you certainly clearly were open to the kind of creative opportunity that the students could bring to that work. I think that is a significant factor, though, and I think I would just want to restate that point, that actually quite often partners come in worrying that the universities are going to be bureaucratic and all of those things. We've been back and forth about an agreement recently, and in actual fact we're just going to accept what the external partner needs, because we recognise that's what the external partner needs. Our legal team are comfortable with it, all of those things. But the key point in this, I think, is that case-by-case basis and engagement. I'm aware that we're running out of time a little bit, and one of the key things I just wanted to ask, perhaps Pip and Adrian, because they're aware of what CCXR has coming into it. I'm just interested to know what you think the most exciting bits of kit that are coming in really are. Perhaps with you, Adrian, because you've obviously been involved in the sound element of this.
Yeah, so there's a full Dolby Atmos surround studio that I cannot wait to play with. And it is that thing, though, it's playing with it. And, it'll be great to work with some of our partners. I think one of the key things is we don't know who we'll end up working with. And that, to me, is what's really exciting. So there are these 12 kind of, distinct studios. And the great thing is, really, we do not know who it's going to work with. It may be with museums, it may be with the Royal Navy, it may be with, any one of the partners that we already work with. But it might also be with someone completely different and completely new. And that's what's exciting about demonstrating, for example, then a Dolby Atmos surround studio with, the latest technology in terms of immersive sound. Maybe that will be useful to the Forestry Commission. We just don't know. It's just picking something out of the top of my hat. But that's really what's very exciting. There are so many individual pieces of equipment and kit and expertise that we have that are all really exciting. But for me, it's really when we put a couple of them together with students and staff and a partner. That's when it will get really exciting.
I think that's a hugely important point. A big argument for the project was about alignment and bringing these things together. Pip, you know the tech better than anybody else. What's the thing that's most exciting you?
So many things. I think for me though, it's the fact that although obviously COVID has had an impact on the project, we're not opening quite as soon as we would like. We'll be opening in October, but we're actually using that technology already. It's actually out there being used by partners. We're solving challenges. The most exciting thing for me, yes, I can't wait to see the volumetrics up and running, and I can't wait to stand on the smart stage. But more than that, it's those phone calls where you get, we've got a problem, we've got a challenge, can you help us with this? That's what gets me excited. It's actually having that, being able to help and make a difference. That's the most exciting thing for me. We'll be able to solve so many more challenges. Now we just need the challenges.
You mentioned that we've got the kit coming in and we're now putting it to purpose. We've got projects. Can you talk perhaps a little bit about some of the Rickperr projects that are currently in progress?
Yeah, at the moment, some of them are currently under NDAs, so we do a lot of projects under NDAs, but some of the ones I can talk about are things like replenishment at sea of vehicles. So we've got some simulation training around that. We've also got some working at heights training going on at the moment. There's a broad range of the firefighting simulation, which we're really excited about because that's using some haptics for the first time. So we've all different things. There's also some VR touch simulations using VR gloves, and some motion capture and real-time streaming. So it's a broad range with a wide, so many different sectors. I think we're working in 4 different sectors just across Rickperr this year. So it's an amazing array of projects. It's always exciting to see the end results.
That's great. Adrian, can I just ask, I know you've been having conversations with your colleagues and your teams about future curriculum development. Can you anticipate what courses might look like in 5 years' time?
So that's a tricky question, isn't it? I think the key thing is that as that review I was talking about a few years ago, we've got to make sure that the students have foundational skills, but we've got to make sure that they're adaptable as well. And I think that's the key thing with the curriculum. So we launched a VR XR course last year, and that's doing really, really well. The games technology courses are growing and growing, and that's because the skills that the students learn on that are so multifaceted and can be applied in so many different directions. But also sort of the animation kind of and computer animation area as well is also growing. So we've got three key themes that we're working around. Play, code, create is one of them, human experience design, and then sound and vision. And across the whole school we're working in those 3 areas, but they're all interlinked. So we'll see where we get led over the next few years. But it would be really interesting if anyone from outside the university has ideas about the sorts of things that you would really value in graduates, either people leaving as undergraduates or postgraduate courses. I'd be really interested to hear via the university. That would be great.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. One of the things that I'm mindful of is that we're also trying to play an advocacy role further down the chain to younger students. That actually we're looking into further education, and we work with a number of local colleges to help support them in the development of what they're doing in the further education curriculum, because that's going to be absolutely crucial to make sure that we have what we need to then supply into industry. I know you've had some FE partnerships, Adrian.
Yeah, we have, and I think what's really interesting is working with at Portsmouth, as other universities around the UK and Europe and globally will be doing, is working with their communities. What's fundamentally important though for CCXR and for School of Creative Technologies is actually to looking at the really young children. So we have an obvious kind of gender gap in terms of women and men interested in creative technology subjects at age 18. And consequently, that feeds into the industry. So it's an absolutely essential kind of duty that we try and have an effect on selling the wonderful story about how amazing creative technologies, immersive technologies can be, and how exciting, creative and technological they can be to both young men and women and underrepresented minorities.
We're now coming kind of to the end of this session. I'm being advised to wrap up, but I do want on that point to just pick up, Pip, because I know this is something you're very passionate about as a woman in tech. you were currently working on events, aren't you? Because we have some great female tech partners.
Absolutely, we've got some incredible industry partners, and together I'm leading on a Women in Technology series. So there will be a whole series of events focusing on exactly that. So anyone who's interested in taking part in that, please do get in touch.
That's great. And if people want to find out more, how can they do that, Pip?
Yeah, we've got a generic email address for CCIXR, which is ccixr@port.ac.uk, or you can find myself, Trevor, Mark, Adrian on LinkedIn. Please do get in touch.
Please do. As I say, we take everything on a case-by-case basis, and we're absolutely open. We really want your challenges and your partnership. So thanks very much for taking part in this. Thank you, Mark, Adrian, and Pip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Been useful. Thank you.